governor like you. We'd be in a lot better shape, Governor. I want to start where I was actually going to finish, but I want to start here, which is you ended up in politics. You're a business guy. It doesn't sound like you weren't a poli-sci major. Why did you get into politics, and what motivated you to do that?
Told you earlier, elections intrigued me. The political world did. I was actually in the Youth for Lugar campaign in '74 at Wabash. So we didn't do much, but I was interested in it. Like I told you earlier, family was always going to be the most important thing. My wife, just so you know, 47 years, only job, her business at 505 Main Street, a home accessory and gift store. And she says she's going 50 years. So she was there doing that. We were blessed with 4 kids, 2 sons and 2 daughters, 3 of whom run the business. So that was the priority. And then, funny story, it was 2004, a guy I knew that was vice president of the school board actually calls for my wife. And he was trying to get her to go onto the school board. We were in a rural township. If you said yes over the phone, you were on the board before the election. So be careful. So I was having fun with it, you know, kind of leaning back on the couch, and was going to crack a joke when she finally said she didn't have enough time to do it, but she caught me by surprise. She said, "Bernie, I've told you politely, I don't have time to be on the school board. Maybe my husband would be interested." I literally wanted to get up, and of course we had a real phone then. She hung up, and I think she said, well, he heard that, because she repeated it. I decided to do it. And school boards, there wasn't CRT, there wasn't masking kids then. It was maybe a budget dust-up or disciplinary issue. Anyone that wants to get into the public arena, you'll find out if you got the temperament to do it, especially in today's world. So it gave me a good grounding on education, which is one of the 2 issues most dear to people, especially when you're young, healthcare as you get older. And ironically, both of them have high demands. Government loves to get involved with it because they can get their tentacles into it, and they compete with one another for which one goes up at the higher rate year after year. So founders never intended, probably, the federal government to be involved in health care.
Right.
They probably thought the states would do a pretty good job at education.
Right.
And look at how we've evolved. So school board 10 years, and then I get a call in 14 from Congressman Messmer, who was State Representative Messmer then. Every 2 years you run. He was getting tired of that. He wanted to run for state senator. He called me first. That is where I had to really say, am I interested in taking the next step? Because then it cascaded pretty quickly. I said yes, ran in 14, got elected twice, gave up the second year of the second term because I had enough tutorial on being a legislator. Now I was getting concerned about the condition of our national government. And that is when I decided to take the plunge to run for Senate. But it all started with the school board call that came in for my wife.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that we should take away from that is, to me, Governor, the best politicians are called. It's not people that grow up thinking, I'm going to be such a great senator. You know, I love myself, so I could picture myself in the Senate or in the House or whatever. You get a calling on your life. Something happens.
Those individuals are called farm system politicians.
Right.
And they are the ones that pivot quickly out of law school into an elected or an appointed office, above average intelligence, don't know anything, and then want to run the biggest business in the world.
Right.
Because they all want to end up there, because even though they say they believe in term limits, most do not honor it. And sadly, if we churned that place with the best and brightest that did something in the real world first, just like the founders did, you'd fix it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to switch to the topic at hand, which of course is Convention of States. How'd you first hear about convention states?
Well, do any of you know Senator Tom Coburn from?
Just a little bit.
So this is funny because I'm going to bring up another word or phrase like Harvard, Morning Joe. Yeah, I know, it almost knocks you off your seat. Well, when that show started, you know who was on it most often? Dr. Tom Coburn.
Right.
Because that was actually supposed to be MSNBC's conservative show.
Right.
So I watched that and I said, that's the only senator I've ever heard talking about a balanced budget and don't borrow money from future generations. And that would have been back in the early 2000s, because I think he got out of the Senate in 2011. But when he heard I was running for Senate, started with 1% in the first poll. My wife asked, where are you at, dear, in the polls? I said, we rounded up to 1, but we're going to win it. We're going to win it. And so many things started to come into play. He wanted to come into my race and came to Indiana twice. And then he trained the smartest lady in D.C., feisty conservative that knows all the rules. Her name's Katie Bailey.
Oh, she's great.
And Katie was my legislative director. And that's how, as a senator, in the third year, we got more legislation passed that was practical, that was trying to shrink government. And if it had a fiscal, we found a way to pay for it. We got so good at it that Democrats would bring practical ideas. That was few and far between. And then on the Senate side, you only had like a Joe Manchin and a Kirsten Sinema that would have even been real considered in that. Now they're gone. So that is who inspired me to kind of, and that's who I looked up to. Because,
Another hat tip to our patron saint.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Tom Coburn.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a remedy, Article 5 and calling it convention states. Most people don't even know about it still, which is my great frustration and the great opportunity. Why did you decide that this is something that you wanted to support?
So I had to get good in making ends meet. I told you the story earlier. And when you've got the printing press in the basement, which is what the federal government has, they exercise discipline from 1913 until, and I'm going to give you some real quick progression of how much it cascaded. I think we were roughly about $1 trillion in debt when Ronald Reagan got there, give or take. I was disappointed when Reagan cut taxes and didn't look at spending.
Right.
It was so small, relatively speaking, even conservatives probably thought that was innocuous. Kind of set the stage to where we just never turned to the spending side of the ledger. And then between 1980 and 2000, when W got in there, we were about $5 trillion in debt. That's starting to cascade. You go from $1 trillion in 80, $5 trillion in 2000. He put 2 wars on the credit card, mostly, and we're probably running $300 to $300 billion deficits. So when he's done, we are $10 trillion in debt. Well, you have a community organizer coming along next. If they're doing that on defense, we're going to do it on the domestic side. And the whole 08-09 dust-up, TARP, was only $900 billion. Only. I thought that was atrocious.
Right.
But then the CARES Act was $4 trillion. So we were $16 trillion in debt when I got there in 18, with structural trillion-dollar deficits. The rest is, you know the arithmetic, and I don't want to depress you thoroughly, about the numbers, because they are that severe. Right now, the solution, along with Article 5, which has prominence in the Constitution, it is Article 5. But no, it's never been used. Congress has been the only pathway to amendments, but they have zero interest in actually reining it in fiscally. And when your interest is now equal to your defense budget, and it gets geometrically worse each year we go forward, the whole process of a Chapter 11, which is what a business goes through when they got a year or two to work it out, that will come into play, and that's when the convention is going to really, I think, catch stride.
Right.
And that's only 6 to 7 years down the road, because right now we're on a pathway to be 60 trillion in debt in 10 years. The Medicare Trust Fund goes broke in about 4, Social Security in 8, then things really start to wobble. Our reserve currency status, all the things that we've had. And I want to tell you too, the greatest generation that grew up in the Depression believed in hard work, investing, not consuming and spending, living in the present, off the future. They fought World War II, grew up in the Depression, paid off the highest debt we ever had before, and built the interstate highway system. That's not in our marrow anymore. That's not in our bloodstream. So it's going to take something to shake the system into reality, and it's not going to be from farm system politicians, career politicians.
So I'm going to close with this question because we just got a few minutes left. Do you think there's any chance the federal government will ever fix itself without a crisis and a convention of states? I know softball.
Was
but...
that a joke? I took as a privileged motion, Rand Paul was the only one that would do it before, as a privileged motion to the floor on a balanced budget. That's the one thing, again, lip service. 17 Republicans voted against it. Your neocons and your appropriators are the ones that make the unholy alliance with all the Democrats. And as long as they're doing it, it will be hard to slow it down until the numbers crunch in such a way, because when the Medicare Trust Fund goes broke in 4 years, they'll borrow the money to backfill into the budget, right, so that they don't have to cut the benefits. Social Security Fund will be a bigger one that goes broke 4 years later. We'll be able to see what they do, but raise taxes? Well, I mean, the economy has never been able to pay more than about 18% of our GDP into the federal coffers. Right. The invisible hand of the marketplace doesn't allow it to happen. So we've accepted, up until Biden, running about 5%, deficits that were going to be in that 500 billion range. Then they went to $1 trillion, and now we're stuck with $2 trillion. So who knows?
Yeah. All right. So that was a softball. So I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
Favorite amendments, things that you think need to come out of a convention.
It's clear. A lot of people are afraid a convention could run away. That's mostly foolishness. Confine it to two things: term limits and a balanced budget amendment. The founders would have never imagined that you needed to put that in other than Article 5. I don't know that they ever thought it would be due to financial irresponsibility, but they never imagined the printing press being in the basement. And that is a dangerous combination with career politicians that get a better pension every term they get reelected. And it's sad, the perverse incentives that make you do more of it, rather than just say, hey, I gave it 2 terms in the Senate, or 6 terms in the House. If you love it so much, 18 years max, get your butt back home. We won't get it until it's a calamity, or we do it through a convention of states. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Mike Braun. Thank you. God bless you, Governor.
Appreciate it.